There we go.
Welcome to Barbell Shrugged. I'm Anders Varner. To my right, Mr. Doug Larson.
Oh, yeah.
Coach Travis Mash to the left.
Yo, yo.
Barbell Stories is on the camera. Look at the man.
Yo.
William Bro. Dude, we gotta start branding your last name Bro.
Seriously.
That's so much cooler. We're in Louisville, North Carolina. That's where Mash Elite Performance is, at least for a little while, till he goes to Lenore Rhine.
Bringing it there.
Bringing it to the university kids.
Let's go.
Today we're kind of doing part 2 of how to get super jacked, but we're talking accessory movements. So we're going to walk through the hip, the knee, the shoulders, and then we're going to talk about how little your core actually matters in being strong, which is exciting. We're going to start there, actually, because that's where we were right before we turned the mics on.
That sounds controversial.
People are gonna be interested. I've always lived under the assumption that your core really matters a lot when it comes to having a big squat. And then Mr. Travis Mass just dropped the nugget that you don't really use them that much. So training them needs to be thought of a little bit differently.
Well, you got to think of what is the core. That's the key right there.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, the core matters, but not the core. Like is what most people think. Like abdominals, not much at all.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that's what the science says. Mainly it's just the spinal extensors. You got to think about what you're doing. If we would just slow down for a minute and think about what we're trying to do. Does that make sense? So if I'm trying to see an extension, what does that? It's the spinal extensors. The abdominals are in front of you. There is no way it pulls you into extension.
Yeah.
It would be impossible that pulls that up.
Well, those ones that
your
you're
spinal
seeing,
erectors are also a very significant part of your quote-unquote core.
Right. That's
people
the key.
think core, they think six-pack abs.
Not
But
at
it's
all.
all the muscles that surround your torso.
Right.
And many of those muscles are your spinal erectors. And if you're squatting and you're bent over, those are going to be by far more activated than any of your other core muscles. They
Right.
might be activated a little bit, like your obliques and your rectus abdominis, et cetera, but not like they would be if you were doing hanging leg raises or farmer's walks, or one-arm farmer's walks especially,
Right.
et cetera.
I totally agree. I would dare say that the spinal extensors are more of the core than your abdominals is what I would say. Because if you think about the core, keeping the spine neutral, or if you think about what it takes to keep your pelvis in a neutral state, which is I think is what most people think when they think core, is all of this. Everything that supports the spine and pelvis. I would say the spinal extensors are by far more important than the abs. I would say the abs are not very important except getting out of bed. If you really think about what, when you talk about going into flexion, the really only time you do that, I mean, maybe a few other times getting off the floor, but is when you get out of bed. Otherwise, you're trying to stay upright. And so work your spinal extensors.
Yeah. Do you do much core accessory work?
Oh, yeah.
Do you?
Oh, totally.
Oh, what a savage.
Dude, like being...
It's the thing I hate the most, actually. I'm like, I can't breathe.
I know.
Holding myself in place.
If you're siloing what's important to weightlifting or powerlifting, then you really have a very small number of movements that you're really doing. Like if you're a powerlifter, like you're bending forward for 2 movements, and that's about all the variety you're really getting.
Yeah.
But if in my case, like I fought MMA for a long time, wrestling, jiu-jitsu.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
totally different.
You have no idea what position you're going to end up in those sports. Like you got to be strong at every angle, and so I don't overly prioritize core training versus any of the rest of my strength training. But I definitely think it deserves an equal role compared to like my upper body training and my lower body training. It's a big factor.
Anytime I think about what I'm doing for core training, I always just work on stabilizing more than flexion or side bends.
Totally.
I think about it way more of like a unilateral like farmer carry, suitcase carry.
Absolutely.
Overhead walking lunges.
Awesome.
Done. That's like the core training finisher for the day. And the stuff I feel like is way more athletic. Anytime I think about the core training specific, I just try to be more athletic in whatever I'm doing. So if you're doing a pull-up, like pushing away from the barbell at the top, or not the barbell, but the pull-up bar at the top, so you're getting as far away, and now all of a sudden, or doing
Staying
ice
hollow
cream,
as you do it.
yeah, ice cream makers on the rings. Those are always fun,
Yep.
super hard. But the more athletic you can make the movement, the tighter your abs have to be able to complete the movement. But it's not really like doing a sit-up or a crunch. You're just really stabilizing as much as possible.
Right.
That way you have the connectivity from your feet to your hands, your brain, whatever you need.
Well, I went down the anti-rotation, anti-lateral flexion, anti-extension, et cetera, route there for a long time. Stuart McGill, Mike Boyle, all the people that really promoted that heavily over the last 10, 15 years now. And I think it's a really good idea to really take in that line of thinking, because there's a lot of application there from a sports performance standpoint, and then also from a spine longevity, health standpoint.
Yes.
And really, those people they're mostly talking to the people that think that you should just do 600 crunches a day, and like that's how you get six-pack abs and whatnot. But I think I took it too far for a long time, where I wasn't doing any actual concentric, eccentric contractions, which I think, again, jiu-jitsu, MMA, etc. You need to do those things.
If you're going to throw a knee, you need to have flexion.
Yeah.
That's a big part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and you need, like, if you're kicking somebody, you need to know how to have hip flexion with a neutral spine at the same time, where you're not compensating and all that. But I mean, look at gymnasts. Like, gymnasts by far have some of the most well-rounded, strongest, most stable cores out of any athlete of any category, and they do a lot of strict hanging leg raises and things like that. And I think there's really is a place for those, in my opinion. I think when CrossFit first started, nobody was doing strict anything. It was all kipping toes to bar and whatnot. And then now, years later, a lot of people have come around to including strict hanging leg raises in their training, amongst a million other things.
The only thing that of all the CrossFit movements, the only one that makes me like question, and I'm not saying it's wrong, is like the GHD sit-ups and the way that people go back. You go into hyperextension, into hyperflexion. I just can't see where that's healthy. But it's
not necessary for almost anything, except for competing in CrossFit.
I know.
It's part of the sport. Yeah. I don't think it's good for you.
I've really jacked myself up. I'm not saying I actually tore all of my abs, but it felt like, and it took me about 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks to recover, to the point where I did 150 of them in a day, and it basically crippled me. Like I could not do any other movement for 6 to 8 weeks. Like I was legitimately injured. And it was because, one, there was way too many reps, way too long of range of motion. You're way too strong. You're just hip flexors, everything, and just like not capable of handling that. And I had to go all the way back to like a static hollow body hold, create stability, and then I was like able to start moving. But it was like the slowest healing process of any injury I've ever had, of any just setback in training, because you don't realize how important all of that stuff is until it's just all shredded.
I've heard a lot of people getting rhabdo from that too. I've heard here's the two things I would say that just concern me. I'm not telling people not to do them. Here's my concern: is one, I've heard a lot of people getting rhabdo from it. That's from the crazy rep schemes that they do, which is, you could say that for a lot of things.
Right. Most people aren't used to high tension under that, at that range of motion, doing in full global extension, high speed eccentrics, high deceleration, like where your muscles all the way stretched and has never had tension at that.
Which brings me
range
to
of
the
motion.
second.
Makes people very sore.
Is where where it originates, which is in the lumbar spine. So you are really, I think, playing with fire when you go to such extreme hyperextension,
most people blow right past that range of motion, where like if you're doing them and you start to feel that low back kind of twinge tweak,
that's
like,
a bad thing.
I'll just blow through it.
Don't
no big
do
deal.
it.
That is where you get some seriously nasty injuries.
I would say
I'll raise my hand. You can't see it on the radio right now, but I've been there.
If you're taking CrossFit, there has to be, and I think they are. I think they're really doing a good job of saying, this is CrossFit for health, and this is CrossFit for sport. If you're going to do the sport, I don't know of any sport that's truly healthy. MMA is sure as heck not healthy.
Not good for you.
Powerlifting is, a lot of my friends are already dead. It's not healthy. But so you got to separate it. So I wouldn't take, if the coaches out there listening would just say, if a 40-year-old accountant, I don't know why, I always go with a 40-year-old accountant, comes into your gym,
very desk bound.
Like, do you want to snatch? Maybe if he's the one in a million who just happens to have that great mobility, just it's inherent in his genetics, or would you want to do the GHD sit-ups? I wouldn't, but maybe there's a case. But
yeah, we're speaking in generalities here for the most part. Like, for the most part, either at a minimum you want to show up and just be like, okay, well, we could do these things, but let's check a few things first. If you just throw someone in there and they don't have very good range of motion on something like a GHD sit-up, and you're like, no, go all the way back. You got to touch your hands to the floor. Yeah. And they're like a foot and a half away, and you're like, no, further. It's like, It's like it'd be like someone squatting and they get down to roughly parallel and they start rounding their back and you're like, no, full depth,
Keep
all
going.
the way down, down. Go on, ass to grass, and then by the time they get ass to grass, they're all the way rounded over in a shitty position. Well, that's a bad idea. You got to apply that same logic to something like GHD sit-ups, like
snatches,
you know,
like anything. Like anything.
I think the best ab exercises I've ever done in my entire life is when I'm on a soccer field or on a football field and someone is chasing me. Because the only way that you're going to run is to stabilize your core as tight as possible. And now all of a sudden you've got your lungs and your abdomen.
Great.
You're breathing as hard as you can and stabilizing as tight as you can. And the next day you wake up sore as shit.
Yeah.
And you just can't get there and feel that level of like breathing and tension in your core unless someone in a way is kind of chasing you. It's hard to get to that level of intensity, but I feel like that if you ever wonder like what the role of your core actually is in creating stability in your spine, the best way to do it is just to go run, because you'll start to feel you're like, okay, well, if I were to let go, well, now you're running, your low back's exposed, you got this flexion in your core. It's no,
you'll slow down.
Yeah, it's a bad place to be when you're running, and then create that tension. Now all of a sudden you can feel yourself bracing.
Yes.
And all that stuff's going to transfer over to understanding how to squat and snatch with bracing,
everything,
and breathing.
Yes. Sprinting is great. He hit the nail on the head, because sometimes people forget that the diaphragm is actually a muscle, and so if you want to work the diaphragm, go sprint.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're getting sore, and it's partially your diaphragm is getting sore.
Yeah.
So now you're working the muscle actually is responsible for respiration.
Yeah.
So like sprinting is something I feel like Martin Rooney talks a lot about how every human should sprint because we were so designed to sprint, to run. So
I feel like that's one thing that will keep you young.
Yeah.
If you run sprints systematically, you know, once or twice a week, every week, and you just keep doing it, like you just stay younger.
And you'll probably be more jacked. I mean, you know, look at every sprinter; they're always so jacked.
Right.
And you know, and that brings me to one point before we go forward. Is like when people say, "I want to feel like I did when I was X age." What'd you do when you were that X age? Well, I sprinted, I jumped, played sports. But what are you gonna do now? Well, I'm gonna jog, and it's not adding up. Like, go do what you used to do.
and do bodybuilding.
Jogging is the biggest waste of time I've ever seen in my whole life. And I go sort of jogging. I will go for a long run. I was just telling Doug, I want to go run 22 miles. I just found this new trail. I just want to go do it. I'm definitely not sprinting the whole thing. But, when you see people jogging around the neighborhood, you're like, dude, you're like walking fast and calling it a workout. Like, sometimes when I am standing on one side of the road and the car that's coming lets me go by, I'll like act like I'm jogging across the street.
Yeah.
Just to be friendly. I feel like that's the pace that most people go running at.
Seriously.
And you're like, what are you doing? You waiting for the car? You trying to be polite to everybody else by not making them question how how little they do in their life? Like, I'm jogging, but you keep sitting on the couch. I'm only 1% ahead of you.
It would be better for you just to walk fast. It wouldn't be so like it wouldn't be so much up and down pounding. All you're doing is kind of going. And you're not doing shit, man. Walk fast. It'll feel better in your body, and you'll probably burn more calories. You'll probably go faster if you walk faster.
Yeah, right?
So I dig going for a trail run once a week.
Trail runs are phenomenal.
Trail runs are the best, dude. Like you get out, you get outside, you get nature in the woods. Like it's pretty. Oftentimes, like I'll run and then I'll do it where I basically am just kind of like jogging casually, and then I'll run as far and as fast as I can for about 10 or 15 seconds, and then I'll just kind of jog casually until I feel more normal, and then I'll just kind of run very, very informal intervals like that.
That sounds fun.
Pick a mailbox, sprint to it.
Yeah, I do that. That's if I run.
That's my go-to.
Me too.
If I have nothing to do, I'll just start walking. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna run to that mailbox as fast as I can. And that mailbox might be 20 yards away, might be 100 yards away, might be around the corner, and then I go, okay, I'm tired. Got to the mailbox, then I walk a little bit. It's the best. And you can always change it up. You can always have different speeds, different intervals. You just pick a mailbox and roll.
I guess anyway, probably get back to accessory work. I know I could
go. We talk about gaining muscle. We went on core and then
I know,
cardio.
Dude, but I could definitely, since now I'm the cardio king, I'm doing bike all the time. I kind of did cardio for the first time, so I could easily go down this rabbit trail. It's so fun. I can't believe I just admitted that. Edit that out.
I think that sprinting is one of the best accessories you can do for everything. If you're on a prowler, if you're on a prowler and you're sprinting, it's awesome. I seriously throw my daughter in her little thing, and that's my prowler push. 10 of those a night, and she's like a little slave driver. She won't let me stop.
Yeah.
More. I'm like, no, done.
Even with hypertrophy, you could say, getting jacked. I like sled pushing and sled pulling because you're going to get the metabolic stress. You're going to feel that pump, but it's not going to damage you because there's not a lot of eccentric, contractions going on.
Yeah.
So I like it, especially towards the end of, say my athletes right now, the majority of them are it's game time. They're either 3 weeks or 8 weeks out. They're either getting ready for Junior Worlds, or the rest of them are doing junior nationals, the majority.
Yeah.
And or even Jordan, my senior, who's really good. He's getting ready. He's going to do universities too, just to mop up.
Yeah.
But that was bad. Other competitors. It's truth. But anyway, my point being is then I start to prescribe those, that kind of conditioning or that kind of accessory work. Stuff that won't crush them, that they're still staying in shape, that the work capacity is still staying, at least staying. But preferably continue to rise.
We're also just putting their body under a very rigorous environment, pushing, pulling,
forcing adaptation.
All of that stuff. You have to build a ton of muscle. It's just it's not your standard contraction, sitting in a squat, standing up.
Yeah.
But you're still creating an environment where being strong is mandatory for survival, which I think is overall in a good strength program the thing that you want to be doing the most. It's just how do you create an ecosystem where you have to be strong.
And it's something that I don't know why we don't talk about it more. It just makes things fun. And let me tell you this, is that after this last quad, this is my second Olympic quad that I've coached in, I have watched people start to hate the sport. So coaches, if you don't at least consider making it fun for your athletes, they're probably not going to last. Your studs I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Go do some sled pushes. Do some carries. Don't just snatch, clean, jerk, squat, pull, or they're going to lose their mind. I saw it.
Right. I
saw an athlete in Thailand lose her mind. She will never lift again. I have no doubt she will never be back. She lost her mind. She's like, I'm done. I'm done with this sport. I saw it happen. Then I was like,
at Worlds?
At Worlds. She competed.
It's a long way to go to lose it.
She competed. It didn't go well. She's a sweet girl, And she's not even one that I'm close with, but I really like her. And she was like, I'm done.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm not. It's like, so you're going to get ready for the American Open? Absolutely not.
When you get on the prowler, too, not only is it fun, but you get to go hang out with your boys. No one ever you're not pushing a prowler by yourself. You're out there with your bros.
Yeah,
you're out there with your training partners, and you go, it's like you just look at it, you go, we got to make a game up to make this thing happen.
Yeah, let's go do
it's either
relay.
Loading it up,
Yeah.
I'm going to go until you quit.
Yeah.
And then now you've got a fun game. Now you're a kid again.
That's a great idea.
Now you're back out playing.
How much do you program, especially for your elite people, glute ham raises, reverse hyper, or even more obscure things like calf raises or forearm training? Do you do any of that type of training?
Definitely grip training. I wouldn't say necessarily forearms to have huge forearms, but definitely grip, which will inevitably be forearms, especially for Sean Rigsby, who he is so strong and moves so well for a big guy, where the weak link might be his grip. So we do a lot of grip work, mainly specifics like carries, like pinch grips, and some just regular. I love my favorite forearm training is stick your hand in rice or sand and open close.
Yeah.
Our coach used to abuse us.
That's old school martial arts stuff right there.
Oh yeah. This is old school weightlifting this is old school strength conditioning. He used to put us through this awful superset. Supersets sound fun, right?
Yeah.
It was not. Sounds fun. Yeah, I thought it was his body, but we're gonna get a pump, go home. So he uses it for mental abuse basically, and so he would make us do this crazy pull up superset with pull down.
Yeah.
And he would put the weight on the bar on the pull downs. He was in control, and he would put weight you couldn't possibly do. He's like, if you let go, you're starting completely over. I'm like, I was an 18-year-old boy, and I cried like a girl. He's like, let go, Mash. I want you to let go. I'm like, so then you get done. Probably we all have rhabdo, no doubt. And he's like, you go do the sand, what do you call it, sand grabs?
Yeah.
And then you come back here. Let me check your forearms, and I'll tell you when you can be done. So you're like, and you go to him. He's like, more. He's like, and then I thought it was cool because like I was pumped for like I thought it was a pump.
Yeah.
I was probably sick. But I was like, man, this is cool. I have a pump for 4 days. That's not normal.
It feels awesome when you're done. Like when you feel your forearm. It's just fucking rock hard.
Yeah.
It feels
Veins.
awesome.
That one vein runs through there.
If you've never, like, you heard Travis talking about this. If you've never done like really hardcore forearm training where you're doing like very high reps, like just endless gripping and squeezing, like it is brutal as far as like entering the pain cave goes.
Oh man, like he taught us how to be tough, and he broke me off too because like earlier in the week he was like, it was because I was a redshirt freshman. He's like, you got your first superset coming Friday, and all in my brain because I was already, I'd been lifting already.
Yeah.
I just assumed it was just like a fun get a pump, He's like, I'm gonna break you off, Mash. And I was like, you can't break me. I learned a lesson. Like, I learned such a valuable. I'm still afraid of him. I'm a 46-year-old man. If he were to walk in the room, I'd be like, yeah. He's like, you can't break me, old man. I was just kidding, and it was bad.
Came after you, dude.
Oh, it was
Challenged
bad.
him.
But then I love that guy. Mike Kent is his name, by the way. He's a great. I needed a man like that in my life. Guy's out of control, but. He broke me off. He taught me.
Yeah.
He broke me. I was his bitch. I'm gonna be honest. After that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
In the last episode, we talking about how to get strong. We went through the big 6 lifts, a lot of rep ranges. So go back and check that one out if you have not already. But going into accessories, how do you break some of this down from hip to knee, shoulders? We already talked about the core and a lot of the exercise we're going to do there. But what are the favorite kind of accessories to go? I mean, we're already past squat, dead, bench, snatch, clean, and jerk, and then getting into the accessories and the pieces that go on to putting on size, muscle.
We look at it from a couple of different ways. You have the movements where you're going to get a lot of like concentric, eccentric contractions. So like plate front raises, plate lateral raises. Then there's a difference in that versus like overhead carries. We do a lot of that. Morgan is convinced that he does the bamboo overhead carries and maybe with some dangling kettlebells. He's convinced that's helped him the most of anything because a long time ago he would clean anything and his jerk was like a big 50-50. Now his jerk is as beautiful as his clean.
Yeah.
He relates it completely to that. We do a lot of things. So it's hard to say, but
his shoulders are strong as hell.
Getting there, like his legs. I always tell him like I used to say his legs were like a grown man and his upper body is like a little boy pre-pubit.
He's getting there now, though.
But now he's in puberty. I'm saying upper body, so he's in puberty. He's not quite as grown man yet, but he's getting there.
You think if you sent him to a gymnastics gym with a real gymnast and all they worked on was handstands, that he would make good progress there?
Yeah, maybe he's really good at that. Like he can do handstand walks for days. He can do handstand push-ups for days. I just don't think it's like absolute as strong as down. Maybe he does because he started in CrossFit. Like and when I met him, he's like, hey, I really love CrossFit. I want to do both. Deep down, I'm like, yeah, right, whatever. Yeah, do what you want.
Yeah.
But I knew eventually because the way he's built for weightlifting more. He's gonna be big, And but he can do strict muscle ups. He can do all the cool upper body. But maybe if we went there, he would do even more.
Yeah, I think when people are putting their programs together, that the accessory piece is oftentimes the most confusing in picking the right movements to do.
Right.
If there was a process of simplifying what an accessory movement is, when you look at like the clean, you can basically break those pieces down into all of the parts that go into that. So finding the lifts, snatch, lift off. If you struggle with your first pull, second pull, getting things to the hang, getting to the power position, and finding those areas. Is there a way that you're prioritizing maybe like strengths versus weaknesses?
Sure.
Because I always like to think about combining the two. I always like doing things like if I'm doing like a 3-position clean, I love cleaning from below the knee. I hate taking things off the floor. So if I can get if I can put complexes together and build my accessory plans off of things I love, coupling it with things that I don't love.
I've never heard you say that. That's a great idea.
It always makes it more fun because I always have great success,
Yep.
even though I'm working on stuff that I suck at. So
Right.
it'll be, if, for example, it'll be like 3 snatch or 3 clean lift-offs to below the knee, and then I'll take it on the eccentric to below the knee and do the clean. So it's like a 3+1, but I get to do the thing that I really love to do,
Right.
coupled with the things that I really hate to do that I need to work on, and it creates a nice way, a nice little story for me to go and work on the stuff that I need to work on.
I think that's great. I think you can use, like if you can identify, there's in a pull, if you're talking about a clean or a snatch, you've got the back standing extension, that's 1. You got the hips, 2, and 3 would be knee extension. Those are the 3 main, groups of muscles and 3 joints that you really got to worry about. I mean, really the back has multiple joints, but, we just look at it as 1 in reference to talking about accessory. So, like, you can do what you're saying. So you can do it with cleans. You do a lot of isometric contractions, really strengthen the joints at specific angles. But you can also say, look, your back is weak, and then you can use accessory movements such as like rows. But preferably, I would say that good mornings, RDLs.
Do you do a lot of good mornings?
Every single human on my team does good mornings.
Really?
I think every
Is
strength
loading
athlete in the world,
loading the hip and low back almost from that position.
It's the entire back because we use the safety squat bar, so it puts the bar out in front of you.
Even more.
So really, the entire spine is being worked.
Yeah, I feel like that's a tough one for many people. Just
Yes.
the ability to maintain tension in the glutes and keep a stable spine is very tough when you're loading from the top.
Yeah.
I always actually try and back it down to an RDL because it's the same movement. It's just a different loading pattern and keeping the bar in tight.
But you're not going to with an RDL, it's not going to work. The spinal extensors the way I'm after. It's going to.
Yeah.
But it's not going to work it near as much as a good morning.
Totally.
I would rather start very light on a good morning, and like slowly over time, like a year.
Yeah.
Work up. It was in my career as a powerlifter. It was a huge changing point for me. Like, when I first, I think when I first did good mornings, I was like at a 600 squat, which is pretty good. But my back, that's what was giving.
Yeah.
And then most powerlifters,
it's always the back. It's always that. It's always like top abs and then round with the back.
Round. So then, I started doing the good mornings. I started super light, like 135 pounds. And then over time, a long time, I worked to where I could do sets with 405 for 5, strict good mornings. That took my squat from 6s to 7s.
Yeah.
No doubt, 100%, that's what did it. And that was the only accessory I added. And so, but then there was a point, then that was a time, it was Vogelpool and I were battling, and he was the king, and I'm after him. So I'd watch a video of him he would do crazy good mornings, like 6-something. So I got to where I would do over 600 good mornings. That's where I went too far. So there's a biological tipping point for every movement.
Yeah.
And that's what we all need to recognize, especially with accessories. You're not competing.
Yeah.
So what? I beat him in a good morning. And then I hurt my back. That was dumb. So, like, know what your biological tipping point is. And, like, once you get to, like, I was, like, at that point, I'm like 60%. I'm doing reps with over 60% of my true 1RM back squat. That was enough. That was plenty. That made my back was super stable. So whether it was 7 or 800, when I walked out, there was no flexion happening.
Yeah. Do you actually do them for lower reps? Like, I've always only done good mornings in 8 to 12, just significantly lighter. It's interesting because that position to me has always felt really awkward, but RDLs have always felt really good. I don't know if it's something just with my limbs or torso or whatever it is, but good mornings have always felt very strange to me. And I probably never put all the time into it that I need to.
Based on the things you've told me in the last 2 days, if I were your coach, I would for sure do good mornings because your pull is your weak spot.
Shit.
And like now you're telling me that good mornings feel awkward and you don't like them.
Yeah.
Tells me there's a weak spot in your back, and so I would for sure have you doing good mornings.
Now I'm on it. How do you progress me on it?
Normally we start with literally 25 to 27% of your back squat, so that low. So I'm teaching you to get used to the motion, getting your back to start to adapt. But there won't be a lot of adaptation until later. But I got to slowly work it in because it is the low back. And like we're silly to think that that's not a delicate spot.
Yep.
However, if you do it over time, slowly, and prepare the body properly, you learn to maintain a neutral spine. You learn how to hinge properly. Over time, it's a safe thing. Matter of fact, I think that was the thing that, I told you, I hurt my back really badly, and they told me.
With the box squats.
Yeah. And so the good mornings was one of the things I started doing that actually helped me to never get hurt again.
Yeah. Well, in the documentary, Lou even talks about how he thought his back was unbreakable, and you can see him bending over with safety squat bar.
I would
good
agree.
mornings for hundreds of pounds and tons of reps. And when I see somebody in that like bent over squat position here and just basically squeezing their butt, coming to full hip extension, but only moving their back up, there's like a training age piece to it that I'm like, when I see Louis do it, I'd imagine if I saw you do it, I'd be like, they should totally do that exercise.
Right.
That looks great.
Right.
But getting somebody to mentally like go from a closed hip to an open hip with weight on their back is such a far progression in understanding kinesthetic awareness of where your body's at and how to squeeze your butt to get to hip extension. Right. That's the biggest piece that I struggle with when I'm coaching or talking to people about it, because it's like, I feel like an RDL is simple. It's like in a way, because you're loading and the gravity is pulling that bar straight down, it keeps the balance over your midfoot, and now everybody has a better understanding of kind of how that movement works. And it's very much mimics a deadlift, which most people are comfortable doing. When you put it on your back, all of a sudden, how far back do the hips go, because the bar is loaded on your shoulders. I'm really good at cheating that movement too, where I do this fun little trick where I just roll the bar down my back.
Oh, yeah.
I imagine with the safety squat bar, I don't get to do that.
Now you shorten that flexor moment, and that defeated the purpose. That's why safety squat bar, there's no rolling.
Yeah, there's no rolling the bar down. But yeah, I feel like there's a real training age to the good morning, and being very safe with those, and probably getting into the 12 to 15 rep range with just a 45-pound bar on your back is a great place to start, just to actually be able to segment that hip joint and be able to feel what getting to a 45-degree angle or lower in that position feels like.
You see a lot of people do good mornings, and I'm like, I mean, what are you doing? But yeah, like being able to do it, a really, a lot of people can't hinge too. Like you'd be surprised. I mean, no, you wouldn't. You guys are coaches. It's really harder than most people think to teach a hinge. So if you go to do a good morning with a rookie, someone who can't hinge well, you're definitely setting them up for failure. I'm really talking now about like people who are 2 or 3 years in, athletes who, if they can snatch and clean and jerk, they should, in theory, be able to, over time, do a pretty good morning. And definitely add a lot of mass to your back and, obviously, your butt and hamstrings. But your back will for sure grow. The spinal erectors will just, like, thicken up like crazy, which is what that's the ticket for weightlifting and powerlifting. You see people catching a clean, and every time it just bends them over. Like safety squat, good mornings is a great way to counter that. Even if you don't have a safety squat bar, it's not the end of the world. Give me a high bar good morning would work too. Safety squats is a little bit better just because it distributes things a little bit. I
think with safety squat bar too, you can move those handles out, and it creates a better position here.
Yeah,
instead of like just down where you're staring at the ground.
I just the way it likes, if you're really wanting to put stress on the spine, which this is one time I'm actually trying to, like the further up and out that it gets, the longer that flexor moment, the more stress it puts on the spine.
Yeah. So. When you think about the spine, do you ever? I love incorporating like Jefferson curls. I don't necessarily recommend them for a lot of people. But do you do a lot of loaded spinal flexion?
I don't. It's just mixed reviews, and so I err on the side of what Stuart McGill's told me, and he's my go-to, and here's why. It's because of my experience, what he did for me. I feel like my back is unbreakable. I feel like I can do anything to my back, not my hips so much, but my back is because of him and because of what I did with my core. I feel like you cannot hurt me here.
Yeah.
So I err on the side of him. Even, there's times he'll say that if you really work, and I know a lot of people aren't agreeing with me. Even my friend Aaron, Squat University, doesn't necessarily agree with what I'm saying here. But, if you do, things in a neutral spine, like always, even when you get into flexion, you've prepared your body more for being in flexion. It's like Stuart McGill would say that the spine is like, you start your life with a full glass of sand. And when you get to the end of that glass, you're hurt. So you're pouring out. Every time you do something that's a bad movement pattern that's putting too much stress on the spine, you're pouring it out. So
I'm going to go completely against you. I think I
do
do them all the time.
And
I
okay
love them.
I'm
a
totally
huge
okay.
fan of Jefferson curls. So the way that I think about it, whether Stuart McGill would
I'm with you. I'm cool
crush
with
me.
it.
Yeah, whether he would crush me on this thought process or not is there's so many tiny little muscles and tendons and connective tissue in there. So what I want to do when I'm doing them, one, I move so slowly to be able to feel the segmentation of the spine as you're moving down, tucking your chin, and literally like being able to feel each vertebrae kind of slowly bend and fold over. I mean, Jill Miller, I think you guys did something with her in like a yoga class. But doing it loaded, I feel like I'm preparing myself for getting into bad positions and still being strong in those bad positions.
Right.
I'm not taking – I think the most I ever typically will go up to is like on a weekly basis somewhere in the 95 to 135 pound range, and going down to a deficit. So with a barbell or with 2 heavy kettlebells, dumbbells, whatever it is. But in the spinal flexion, I feel like I'm able to strengthen all the tiny little things that help me be a lot stronger when the inevitable happens, which is me getting into a bad position, whether it's in a squat, somewhere, like something gets off. I'm still strong enough that I don't feel like I'm going to like blow my back out if the barbell gets a little sideways on me.
I understand
it's only really a bad position if you're under way too much load to maintain that position without tearing something.
Yeah.
Like if you're reaching down to tie your shoes, like you'll probably round your back, but your back is plenty strong to handle that type of loading because there's no weight on your back. You're not doing good mornings with a round back. You're just tying your shoe. So I think with the Jefferson curl, if you're loading it appropriately, if you're starting your Jefferson curls with a 22-pound kettlebell, well, your back's probably going to be just fine.
Yeah.
And then you're building up from there, and most people are not ever going to be able to get to 400 pounds on the Jefferson curl. Like if you're like really, really, really good, maybe you get to like body weight. That'd be really heavy. I don't think it's necessary to get to body weight, but you probably could without hurting yourself. But if you look at it from a population level, if you had 100,000 people try to get to body weight, you're going to have a significant number of them that just don't feel quite right about it. Their back's going to start hurting eventually because it's going to get achy. Maybe they don't blow a disc. Some people probably will. Yeah. But it's just not necessary to go that heavy on Jefferson curls.
Another piece that I really love about it is that I get to feel my body relieving tension. So I'm actually strengthening at the end range instead of like when I'm always squatting or I'm always deadlifting or always cleaning, you're always in this like super tense position to stabilize everything as tight as possible so you can lift the most weight. And then when I do Jeffersons, I'm actually strengthening by lengthening everything that's in my back. So I'm able to get to an in range of motion. I can feel the breathing, and then instead of like forcing myself down, which I think is where a lot of people get into trouble doing stuff like that, where they're like forcing this pass, you can just breathe your way into a better position. So it's a lot of stretching and just kind of a loaded stretch where you're just taking your body to an end range.
I'm with it.
You breathe through your abdomen, you release a lot of that tension, and now all of a sudden, instead of being in just this static state with a super tight torso, super tight core, everything needs to be under tension, now all of a sudden you can kind of put your body under load in a loose and eliminate a lot of the tension that's stored in your body.
He would just say, I mean, like I'm going to visit him with Sean Rigsby. We're going up there. He's invited us to come up, and he's going to look at Sean's back because he's prepared to Sean wants to go one more quad, but he's like, he's older, so like, I think he's totally capable. We just got to be smart. But I'll ask him more specifically. But he's often mentioned the spine as being like a piece of plastic. So yeah, you can do it, but every time you do it, it's like, boom.
Totally.
You do it again. You do it again, and then the
credit card analogy.
Yeah, like here's what I say. Here's why I'm going to err on this side. I'm going to definitely like agree to disagree, and I'm okay that you guys do what you want. But like, is like the one thing on my body that's since that one injury and since I started listening to him that's never hurt me is my back because I've done everything he said. I just got to go with him.
That's why this is so rad.
It's all context dependent. It's like it's like what do you gain from doing this thing?
Yeah.
Like what is the risk? Like if the risk is I don't go to the Olympics, and I would have otherwise, and this thing really is probably not going to help me snatch or clean and jerk more.
It's definitely not going to help snatch or clean and jerk.
Then there's really no reason to do it.
Right.
If you're just a normal person, you have no competitions. You're not like, it's not a part of your livelihood. You're not making your money on training, and you want to incorporate something new into your training. You're doing it in a smart way, and if it ever hurts, you stop doing it. Then I think it's totally fine.
Yeah.
Well, then adding in things like strongman stone carries, where you have to be strong in a flex position to be able to pick up the stone.
Correct. But you don't move. You don't go.
You're bracing in a single position.
You're bracing in a single. You're not going. You're staying there.
No, if you're picking it up and putting it over that barbell, you are definitely
you're going to get here. You're going to get the rock, and you're going to be here, and you're not going to get to here with the rock.
No, you're not going to.
You might pull into more extension, but you're not going to be actively loading a flexion.
You're not going to
individual.
If you're already, even if you're going from like hyperextended to neutral, if you're forcing a flexion moment, then there's some risk there.
Yeah.
If you're going into more extension, then you don't have quite the same risk at all.
Right.
I actually have never had any back problems, and I credit a lot of it to being able to move my spine under load.
I'm good with that.
Yeah. I actually, it's really funny because as you were saying these things, I'm like, well, I do that all the time, and I feel like I could say the same thing. Not that you're wrong by any means. That's why this is fun. But yeah, not only do I do Jefferson curls very regularly, loaded somewhere between 95 and 35 for like reps 3 to 5-ish, probably on a weekly basis. But I also try to do them at weird angles, not just flexing here, but to the side. I try and do like a lot of just
I would not do that. I mean,
general bending, and maybe you should or shouldn't.
I don't know.
It probably depends.
I'll find out more when I go there. There's some questions I want to ask, because I've heard people say that he said something on the contrary, but he's been in my gym. And he did not say, that. He was there still.
He's definitely the expert.
And I will agree with this. If you think about athletics and you think about fighting or anything, like if you want to create a lot of force, like the more tension that you can create around the spine, so the more proximal stiffness will definitely lead to distal performance, speed, and power. So like, I don't know. I
think a lot of it probably is goal specific too. Like, if you're specifically interested, and he trains a lot of MMA guys,
MMA powerlifters,
weightlifters that are trying to pick up 1,000 pounds off the ground. Right. Specifically to that, the goal is to create as much tension as possible in the musculature and have as stiff of a back as possible.
Right.
I feel like for me, I'd like to be a little bit more fluid in the way I move.
I see.
So it becomes a relatively important. You're not going to catch wall balls the exact same way every single time. You're not. So if you can create a core and stabilize your spine and not let suboptimal positions, to me, it makes sense to spend just a little bit of time. This needs to be at the end of your workout, 3 to 5 reps, where you're almost just practicing relieving the tension that you created throughout squatting and deadlifting and doing everything else that you did in your training session, and then just go over and close your eyes and breathe a little bit with some weight on your back, and now you can stretch everything in your back out and kind of tighten or create strength in ranges of motion, which you were just.
I definitely see the logic.
You're treating it more like a stretch than an assistance movement that you're using for hypertrophy purposes. If you're doing like 5 sets of 10 heavy to failure for Jefferson curls, I'd be like, we don't want to do that. Horrible idea.
Yeah.
Like, you could do it once or twice, but eventually it's going to catch up to you.
And the weight that I use on it is maybe incredibly heavy for many people. It might be incredibly light for some people too.
It totally depends on the person.
Yeah.
He would say the one muscle not to stretch is your back. Like, he doesn't like people to do toe touches. He would rather you lay on your back and like use a belt to pull your foot to you.
Yeah.
I've always stretched like that, and that's the way I teach it. But but there are people, and I really respect like Aaron, Squat University. I mean, he's my boy, and he's not quite there. And so like, here's what I've learned. All right, so is that just because he said it, and even though I know he's so smart, doesn't mean that things don't change. People don't find out new information. So I'm not closed-minded to it. I'm definitely going to look more into it for sure to get the truth. I
mean, I definitely think like all the stuff that Greg Cook and Boyle, that joint by joint thing, that they really in large part, I won't say they all the way got it from Stuart McGill, but he was so instrumental in those concepts. But I think Greg Cook and Boyle kind of packaged it up in an easy to digest way with the joint by joint concept. That really should be 90% of your core training. Like all the anti-extension, anti-lateral flexion, etc. That type of training, I think, should be the bulk of your core training, even though we're talking about these little nunuances and
for
whatnot.
CrossFitter, I can see doing that for sure.
Yeah.
Because you guys got to move in such weird ways. Even football players, or baseball players, because you get caught in such awkward positions. But then he would say that, it's a capacity thing and that you're capable of getting in that position, that your spine is always capable of moving.
Right.
He said, but, like, the more you do it, the more likely the injury's coming. So, like, that's where, like, I'm just, like, I don't know the research to say different to him, So, like, I just need to, it's one of the things I hope to do my own research on, too, which is one that I can't wait to be in a lab where I can be like, let's find out. Is it true? Is it not? Like, but.
When you think about speed and power and, like, throws, you're going to be doing that and going from a place of, like, creating that dynamic piece and then going right into the tension, but that's going to be in an awkward angle too.
But then it's unloaded.
Yeah. Do you do a lot of throws for accessory stuff?
Yeah, I definitely do throws. We go out there, we have a little turf area out back where we throw all kinds of, we have, if you see, all kinds of little apparatuses, to throw, med balls to throw. We actually have some shots. We actually have some shots for shot puts.
Yeah. I love going out in the grass and doing kettlebell throws.
Yeah.
Just like strongmen do. They throw it over the bar.
Oh, that's the best.
You just swing a kettlebell and you jump and you throw it as high and as far as you can. It lands in the grass.
Yeah.
It's a kettlebell. It's going to be just fine. Fucking kettlebells survive a nuclear blast. Like they'll survive anything. So you can throw that in the grass and they're totally unscathed.
Yeah. We have a unique culture here now. I know most people know about weightlifters, but we have some actually the best throwers in the country. We have one kid, Mason Ellis, who's going to Wake Forest, who's he's about to throw the shot. This is in high school. He's about to go over 70. So he's like ridiculous. So I love going out there and throwing with him, just because it's like squatting with Morgan. It just like baffles me that he's able to throw something that far.
When we were in Jamaica and we got to go to Usain Bolt's track.
Yeah.
And all the throwers were there like the first night.
I love it.
Freak. Those are the guys I want to hang out with. The sprinters are super rad too, but the throwers, they create so much power in that little tiny circle. Like the hammer.
Yes.
I want to see people throw the hammer.
That's fast and athletic, boy. Like I just feel like I posted a video the other day of like somebody throwing a hammer and somehow I got caught and they went with the hammer.
Oh no.
That would be me. I'd be
like in the air?
Oh yeah. I'll show you. I will show you and I'm like I remember I was watching it, you get caught scrolling, you're like, I'm like, Drew, I call my wife, like, look at this, So.
How often are you spending time doing single leg or like just lower half accessories and just building that out?
Now this, I've always done single leg work, but talking to Kelly Starrett, that's who really got me, because like weightlifters and powerlifters, end up loading the hip in flexion all the time, and so. Here's the key though, is how you do it. So we do a lot of lunges and a lot of single leg work, but the key is maintaining a neutral spine, a vertical. You'll see people doing like a lunge and leaning over, so everything is staying flexed.
Yeah.
We're trying to reach complete extension in the back leg hip. So you stay vertical, so you're loading that hip in extension. It really helps with back. If you have a lot of back injuries, and we weren't getting injured, but a lot of people were starting to say my back. And so we started implementing a bunch of, not just lunges, we would do a lunge and you hold it like right at parallel for X amount of time. Obviously that's got to increase over time, with periodization. But it really ended a lot of back issues. So like Kelly Starrett, he has helped me. He is like probably, in my experience, one of the most generous people ever. Like when I got my hip replacement, I've never met him. He reached out to me. He's like, "How's your hip going?" I'm like, it was surprising.
Such an awesome dude.
Yeah, and then he sent me his electric stim is. I'm totally blanked out.
His?
Yeah. He's a part of the company.
GoPro or not GoPro? What's the
Mark Pro?
Mark Pro.
Yes, he sent me that, which I still use my Mark Pro. It was. I couldn't even sleep, because it was hurting. It was like day 3, and he sent me that. It was the first bit. You're taking pain meds is not helping. It was his Mark Pro. It was the first time I slept. It was crazy. I put it on, and I was like, when I woke up, I was like, man, I messaged him like, you are the best.
Yeah.
Anyway, but he's helped my team so much. So shout out to Kelly Starrett. Like every time I have somebody like tweaked, I will ask Kelly. I will ask Aaron from Squat University, and normally they always help me.
The last like big training or strength training cycle I did like probably 6 months or so, like very heavy lunges, walking lunges specifically,
the best.
Were a massive part of the weekly cycle.
Yes.
Lots of high reps, lots of heavy. There was a turf in the gym that I was training at that was like 25 yards long. And I just throw 225 on the bar and just walk forever.
It's the
and
best.
It gets you jacked.
Yeah, if you want to gain some size from here down, lunge.
Yeah.
Guaranteed.
Dude, you ever use safety bar in a rack for split squats or rear fair elevated split squats?
Oh,
where
all the time.
You can have the safety bar on your back and you can grab the uprights to kind of like put yourself in position, and then you can do force reps if you want to. Like you go down and kind of just like pull yourself through.
We definitely do some of the I mean, I don't obviously do exactly triphasic just because we have so many components in weightlifting. But I definitely there was 2 girls who had no eccentric control. They were just, they were super mobile, which is what you want. But they were both getting tweaked all the time because there was no eccentric control. And so we put them through the triphasic. And not only did they start to develop stability, but it definitely was one of the things that shot them up. Like Hannah is one of them, the little Hannah who is like skyrocketed now. But so Mike, shout out to Mike Boyle. Even though we debate, I'm totally for single leg work. I'm just for bilateral too.
I think the single leg deadlift is the single most important exercise I think that I've ever found in my life. From coaching, doing it but I have this fun little issue that pops up in my hip every once in a while. I don't really know why it pops up. It's probably more stress or something, sleeping, sitting. I don't really know. One day I'll just
curls.
Yep, probably. And then I'll just turn a specific way, and it's like ice pick into the hip. It fixes it right away.
Yeah.
Good set of single leg deadlifts, and I'm good for the next couple months. I don't even have to think about it.
I totally agree.
Do them heavy, do them light, do them in a yoga class. What do they call that pose? Warrior 3?
I call it single leg.
If you're watching on YouTube, that was a baller Warrior 3 right there. Yeah,
if you do single leg deadlifts with a landmine, that's my favorite variation.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, it's the best. Like you can load it heavy. But there's still some stability there. But you also have like good freedom to move however you feel like you need to move. So it's not too restrictive. It's a happy balance of everything.
I tell you, a good way to progress people is like have them put their back foot against the wall, so you get glute engagement. And there's some stability. So it makes the movement a little bit easier. But there's an advantage to the glute stabilization while you're doing it, and then go away from that. Once they get the movement down, you can get away from it and do the full motion. But I like actually doing it myself with my foot against the wall because I really press hard in the wall, and then I'm getting my isometric glute work.
Yeah, and I know Fisher does it where he'll just slightly elevate his back foot, kind of like you would for a rear for elevated split squat, but just like he'll put on a small box which is on his toe, but he's still doing a single leg RDL, so he has some stability. But I like the idea of pushing into the wall. I haven't tried that yet. You
could probably load that a little bit more, which eventually like if you want adaptation. I do it for the same reason you do it. It's because it's healthy for my hips. Yeah. But if you're trying to if we're talking about getting hypertrophy, that's probably a little bit better because you're going to load it more.
Yeah, the more stability you have, the more you're able to tax your prime movers to the point where they'll actually grow.
Right.
Yeah. So. When you get into the hamstring, are you a big hamstring curl, banded hamstring curl person?
100%, because here's why. Not necessarily do I think it's going to help weightlifting. Probably not. But here's what's going to help. It's going to help promote a good balance at the knee, because we do so much knee extension. You have to balance that out with some, knee flexion. Just the same as we talked about, like, external rotation, internal rotation. There has to be a balance at the joint. So, yeah, we do normally with my athletes, we do some type of knee flexion at least twice a week.
Every time I hear or we have somebody that writes into us about knee pain, I ask them I'm like, well, how much hamstring work are you doing? How much accessory work do you do on your hamstrings? And it's virtually zero every single time.
If they're on their program, then they're skipping stuff because there's it's in there.
Well, this is just a general question that we get, but I feel like if getting a couple on each side, banded hamstring curls for 3-4 sets of 25 on each leg is like just a surefire way to quickly fix knee pain.
Yes.
Just as a very general prescription of something to do right away that you can implement, just because we spend so much time squatting, so much time pulling, And if you're not doing the extra work to get in there, it's a very tricky problem because knee pain doesn't go away.
My favorite is the TRX leg curl. Have you guys ever done that?
Yeah, laying on your back.
Yeah, because you get that hip. Obviously, you're going.
I've hated on the TRX thing.
I love that
for so long.
Yeah.
Hold on, this is younger Anders when I was like, if you're not doing what I'm doing, you're stupid.
Yeah.
And like, oh, you got those yellow bands that you're an idiot. Dude, I was on at the YMCA probably like a year ago, and they had a TRX, and I was like, I'm just gonna do it. I'm going to figure out all the accessory movements I can do on this thing, and I'm going to make it happen just so I can, like, learn. That thing's badass.
It's awesome.
You can throw that thing in a door and do everything.
It's awesome.
You're not going to get super strong, but you can be strong. You can do some really cool accessory stuff on TRX. That's an awesome tool.
I love it.
There's certainly stuff you can do with it.
Yeah.
Where it falls apart for me is where people think it's, like, the only thing you need.
Yeah.
It's like, well, you could do that, but there's much better options than just using that one tool.
Totally.
And that goes for virtually any tool in this room. Like even barbells, which can get you very far down the strength continuum.
Yeah.
There's still other things that are good. Hence the whole topic of this show. There's other things to do.
Yeah.
So if you're a one-trick pony and like you just have like I'm a kettlebell guy, all I use is kettlebells. It's like, why? You seem pretty smart. Like, why don't you use other stuff too?
Yeah.
Like there's more to this world than one tool.
Totally.
Like it's like being like Max Schenk says, like it's like being a carpenter and being like, nah, I'm a hammer guy. I use hammers for everything. No saws,
no nails,
no screwdrivers.
Yeah.
Like, nope, I'm a hammer guy.
What are you gonna do with that?
What? Really?
What are you gonna do with that hammer? I mean,
like all my YouTube videos about hammering stuff.
Yeah.
I have a big following.
You can smash some holes with that hammer. That's about it, man. I'm with you. Like, I don't know why people like to limit to like one thing. Or if you're a strength and conditioning coach, why do you have to be a powerlifting guy or a weightlifting guy or a strongman guy? Like, take from all those. I love taking. That's what makes it fun too.
If you're a trainer, you should be. I'm a solve my client's problem guy.
Yes.
And there is more than one way to solve a problem.
Yeah. Period. I mean, I'm using that quote.
When you're building out, I mean, if we're doing all of our Olympic lifts, and that's in the 1 to 3 range for reps, 3 to 5 sets, maybe 7. I did your programming the other day with Kendall.
Yeah.
She was like, we're going to do 7 triples, 7 sets of 3. And I was like, 7? The fuck you think I'm doing here? I'm here to hang out. You're making me do 7 sets. Jesus.
She's going to be so good. That's another story. That's a whole other podcast.
That's why you're on the podium and I'm just hanging out with you.
I'll
do 4. And then cheer.
She's awesome.
Getting past that, though, then you get into the strength work and you're doing, 5s, 8s, 10s, depending upon kind of where you're at in the phase. But when you start to get into actual that single joint stuff and hypertrophy or accessory movements towards the end, where the rep ranges and how do you look at each joint?
I rarely go below 5. Sometimes I'll, with the triphasic, I'll go to 3s because, I kind of follow his protocol sometimes. But
that's
would be
Cal.
It. Cal Dietz,
yep.
He's amazing. But that would be mostly it's going to be 5 and above, somewhere between 5 and 10. And, depending on how small of a movement it is, maybe 12s, maybe even 15s. It's super small. But, I don't go below. It's mainly I'm after hypertrophy. So I'm not after that, the absolute strength, component.
This is a thing that we could probably spend an entire show on, which we should do next, actually. When you're programming, like a really good CrossFit class or a really good or just on your own programming for yourself or for other people, I love thinking about the higher rep stuff as the accessory movements.
Yeah.
It's actually made CrossFit for me so much fun recently.
Right.
After going from this large strength block that I did last year to I'm 2 months into being in CrossFit classes now, and it's freaking awesome because what used to be I have to go be a gangster and play this game and win every day, now I just look at them I'm basically doing accessory work just with an elevated heart rate, and I take as much time as I need in between. I just move rather somewhat slowly. But if you're doing a set of kettlebell swings, that's a phenomenal accessory piece.
Absolutely.
And you're getting into the 50, 75 rep range that you can just do the Russian swings. You feel great about yourself.
Yeah.
But the ability to get a lot of high rep stuff, couple it with things that you enjoy that you may have a metabolic conditioning effect at the end as well. Those are really that makes training super fun to me.
I think there's something wise about that too. I got most of that from Louis Simmons. He's been preaching that forever. Is like, why do people do, the high rep hypertrophy, then they go to strength, they forget this now, then they go to absolute strength, they forget the strength and the hypertrophy. Why not do it all the time?
Yeah.
Mainly, obviously, the focus shifts. But even at the end, if you go watch the Chinese, hopefully Will get to go to the world someday, and you'll see how they're about to do the world championships or the Olympics, and they're in the back doing high rep, shoulder work, dips, crazy ab stuff. They'll be holding each other's legs so they can do hyperextensions with the back. So why go away from it? Just maybe be more wise in what you choose.
Yeah.
Something that won't create a lot of muscle damage. You don't want to be sore. You want to save your body for snatch and clean, or if you're power through squat, bench, deadlift. But don't go away from what got you to where you are.
At the highest level of weightlifting, if you're trying to podium at the Olympics, then in your opinion, is it wise to not overdevelop any of the body parts or muscle groups that aren't directly contributing to the lifts? Like, can you have the minimum amount of muscle mass in your pecs as an example?
Right.
Because if you have an extra pound on your pecs, that's a pound that you can't have on your glutes or whatever it is, where you're completely optimizing your body specifically to to lift as much weight as possible.
I mean, there's some people would agree. I would now that I have witnessed and been in it for a while, I would say you definitely probably going to focus more on the legs for sure. But I think it's definitely not going to be the minimum. I think you're still going to want a developed upper body. Because if you look at the Chinese, you just don't see them getting hurt, and they just keep going and they go and they win and they win. And maybe it's genetic, manipulation or whatever they're doing. Maybe, but they're not doing anything that those other countries aren't doing. Yeah. And they're winning. They whipped everyone's butt. I saw it. And when they walk in the room, it looks like a different breed of human when they walk in, and they all look that way. So then I'm like, it just seems like having a complete strong muscular structure from the tips of your fingers down to your tips of your toes. I think that's a better way to go. I think you can do it longer. I think you're probably the catch of the snatch, the clean, and the jerk will be more stable. So I think the key too is if you can do it longer without injury, you're going to win.
Yeah.
So maybe that would be a great idea, and you would do really well. But then I just don't see how it works out long term because your risk of injury, especially if you're female. I saw that at Muscle Driver. I saw us really just focus on squats, pulls, and cleans and snatches. And I saw Rebecca Gurdon break her wrist simply from reaching the capacity past what she was capable of in the wrist. It just snapped. She didn't do anything wrong. It was just she was able to heave more weight than her body was. Yeah. We hadn't prepared her structure. I was, but when she went to Muscle Driver, they didn't do any accessory work, and I'm like, so I would say no. I think you need to be. I would like to see you jacked from head to toe. Ryan on my team he's jacked head to toe.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Travis Mash, where can they find you?
Oh, Mash, that was a fun podcast.
That was fun.
Yeah. MashElite.com.
I think we have another one of these coming today because I feel like I already have many more things to talk about when it comes to this.
I think hypertrophy is the most fun thing to talk about. It's like everybody wants to be jacked. You're a liar.
Yeah.
If you tell me you don't want to be jacked, you are lying.
You got an angle you're working for some reason.
Right. So, but MashElite.com. Go to Instagram.
You're signaling us.
That's right. You're virtue signaling.
Oh, hit me up on LinkedIn.
Oh yeah, LinkedIn.
LinkedIn. Good one.
Man, professional.
He's out of TikTok now. He's no longer
exited Tiktok.
I'm still.
Mash just went from 18 to 48 all at once.
I am preparing my strategy for TikTok. That's where I'm at. Because I'm terrible.
You can find me on LinkedIn and on TikTok.
TikTok body rock. Never mind.
Oh, you beatbox on TikTok?
No.
Ooh.
Maybe I'll try that and see what happens.
It is. That's how you start. That's how you start. Get it going.
Today I'm going to beatbox.
Doug Larson.
Right on. Find me on Instagram at Douglas E. Larson.
I'm Anders Varner at Anders Varner. We're the Shrugged Collective at Shrugged Collective. OneTonChallenge.com/stronger. 97-page ebook teaching you how to increase your snatch, clean, jerk, squat, deadlift, and bench with the lifetime goal of 2,000 pounds, 1,200 for you ladies. OneTonChallenge.com/stronger. We'll see you guys next week.
Blah, blah.